Sir, I need help. I see things. What kind of things?
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2025 horror film It Feeds. The film is written and directed by Chad Archibald and it stars Ashley Greene, Shawn Ashmore, we have Sarah Garcia, Ellie O'Brien and Julian Richings. Right, the film focuses on Ashley Greene's character Cynthia and her daughter Jordan. Now, Cynthia is a clairvoyant. She's got a gift. She helps people by she's got her own practice. People come to her house, and then she'll kind of get in their heads and find what the psychological issue is that is affecting their lives, and she will kind of deal with that, help them deal with it, if you like. Then this one particular day, there is a young girl comes banging on the door, pleading with the daughter to see her mother because she's saying she's got an entity that is feeding off her. Essentially, the dad turns up, takes her away, not before the mum sees some demonic entity attached to her, and really does not want her and her daughter getting anywhere near it because she doesn't feel like she's strong enough to cope with it. But it gets to the point where she really doesn't have a choice. Right. What are my thoughts on It Feeds? Well, I've been quite looking forward to this one. I saw a trailer for this one several weeks ago. I thought it looked pretty watchable from my perspective. If, you know, unoriginal, I suppose, if you want, if you're going to be quite harsh about it, and that really is what we're getting here with this film. I do think we've got a competently made film with characters that I felt a connection to, with some nicely cultivated jump scares and scares throughout the film. It reminded me at times, this film, of Insidious. There's one scene in particular that, I mean, if you remember that scene in Insidious where she sees the entity behind the father, Patrick Wilson, that red demonic thing. And let's be honest, all of us who watched that for the first time jumped 6 feet in the air. Well, there's a similar scene to that in this. Don't think not just as effective, but you know, it's going for the same kind of thing here. And I liked the idea of this entity, this demonic entity, feeding off the person. And the only way, if you like, for the person to stay alive, we learn, is to feed it, and feed it people. So essentially, you've got this daughter who is desperate, and she kind of, and this entity, like, if the person dies, the last person who is in contact with it, it will move to them, sort of thing. So it's like a disease in a lot of ways, you know what I mean? It just kind of moves from each host to the next, feeds on them and those around them until, you know, it moves on again. So, you know, it's gone from her mother to the daughter, and the father has to kind of cope with it by feeding it, really, in order to keep his daughter alive. And Ashley Greene's character Cynthia and her daughter, 17-year-old daughter, when they get involved, you know, they're out of the depth, really, I think is the best way to say it. And it becomes a race against time, if you like, for Cynthia, the clairvoyant, to kind of figure out where her daughter is and all this kind of stuff, and how she's going to combat this evil, this entity, sort of thing. So it does kind of keep your interest, this film. If it is, like I say, a little bit predictable, I think is probably a fair statement here. I enjoyed the performances here by everybody. I thought they were all very, very strong. Ashley Greene, very good. But for me, the standout here was Ellie O'Brien, who played the daughter, Jordan. You know, this determined young woman who keen to help. Very much like her father, who we don't meet, but we do learn in the film that he was much more charitable, if you like, than Ashley Greene's character Cynthia, but it also cost him his life because he was a clairvoyant as well, I believe. So the daughter's very much like that. You know, she won't give up on people. She wants to kind of help where she can. And, you know, by wanting to help this young girl, it kind of opens the door for her to kind of be put in direct danger by this entity, sort of thing. Like I say, I mean, there's some nice moments here where, you know, you get the usual scary moment sort of thing, especially when she starts messing about in people's heads to kind of, you know, find out what's going off. You get the usual kind of visuals and stuff, and the noises and the growls and the jump scares going off. But it's also got like thriller elements going on it as well, because she worked closely with the police. You know, she gives them tip-offs about this, that, and the other, and, you know, she ends up working with them in this because basically they owe her a lot of favours. I enjoyed the scene where she goes to see there's a doctor at the hospital that treated this young girl's mother who was in the hospital. She's the one that had this entity attached to her, and then she passed it on to her daughter. And when Cynthia, Ashley Greene's character, goes to speak to this doctor, the always reliable Julian Richings, who you'll remember as Death from Supernatural, you know, gave, you know, a brief but captivating performance describing his experiences, how he can't explain it. You know, he's been brought up to save lives and, you know, through science and medicine, and he can't understand it, and he can't explain it, sort of thing. So I thought that was good, because usually in movies like this, you know, when they want things to move forward, characters just punch a few keys on a computer and they get all the information they would ever want on what's going on. And that's kind of how, you know, they move stories forward, with lazy exposition like that. And the film doesn't really do that. It doesn't offer really any explanations, not distinct or absolute, sort of thing. So I think this was a competently made horror film. It kind of does exactly what it says on the tin. It doesn't kind of elevate itself a great deal further than that, but there was potential here, I think, for something really quite terrifying. It never really gets to that level. It threatens to a couple of times, and the performances, I think, were very strong for the most part. But I think, like I say, its lack of originality kind of holds it back a little bit, and its over reliance on jump scares as well kind of hold this one back. But definitely a decent watch if you like horror films like this. So check it out if it sounds interesting to you, and I will of course be back with plenty more content on the channel very, very soon.